y'all. Welcome to the show tonight. Special edition of Lions In. Not a kayak guy. We're gonna convert him at some point.
I don't see that now. You won't.
But we got probably the top dog bass guy in the country right this now, with Jimmy Washam winning the MLF Big5 Title Championship this weekend. So,
but a local guy, you got
a local guy. So we would have Jimmy on anyway. I don't care what he did. We love having Jimmy on the show. You guys have all seen him before, so. But after that big win, we just had to have him on as early as humanly freaking possible.
Yes.
So of course we got Justin here tonight and Mr. Matt. And this is Lions In tonight, but we're doing a special event we're doing it on Primary Tackle as well as on Lions In and Mid-South Bass Fishing and everywhere else we can post it. So we just wanted to quiz Jimmy a little bit tonight on how he won, how we think this will change his life a little bit, and we got a lot to cover for one night.
Yeah,
That's right.
it's going to be one of those, just kind of going from the field. I feel it's going to last a long time. A lot of questions are going to come up.
I am sure. So, let's see. I got my buddy Jeff's having trouble finding it. But Jimmy, I mean, let's just ask the first question. I mean, how do you think this affects and changes your life going forward? I mean, this is a pretty big win. I mean, there's only, 25 other people that can say they've done this before?
Yeah, it's first off just something that I don't feel that I deserved it, but I'm incredibly thankful about it. It's finally setting in a little bit. The first couple of days it was just kind of like I didn't even blink, and just walking around in a daze. But it's finally setting in, and now you know how my mind works. I'm always ready for what's next. I just have a very competitive and upbeat nature about, what's the next thing I can try to work on and get better at. So now I'm trying to figure out how to maximize the opportunities I have from this. Looking at, the business side of things, which that would have happened if I'd have finished 50th in the title. It's business time for a professional angler. So, anything from getting the boat deal squared away to partnerships and how I can maximize those and how I can carry my partners like Primary Tackle and all the great people that support me, how I can carry them on this wave of momentum. So, because here's the thing, it's new and great, and I have a lot of support and a lot of interest in it, but a month from now, if I try to capitalize on it, it doesn't hold nearly as much value. So it's definitely a life-changing win. 30 years from now, it's something that I can still, kind of have a feather in my cap from. But I also know that there's a lot of hard work ahead. So me, I'm ready for the next challenge.
Ready to move on to the next thing and try to figure it out.
Toyota series at Pickwick.
Yeah. So Jimmy, since MLF came on board, they've basically just tried to erase FLW. Even past articles, everything, on the websites, they've just replaced it with MLF. So is this the equivalent to the Forest Wood Cup as it was back in FLW?
It absolutely is. I mean, the Major League Fishing Big 5 staff is FLW staff. There's no changes there. It's the same people. They referred to it on the stage that no one has ever won this twice out of 25 years.
Yeah.
And Chris Jones even said this, formerly known as the Forest Wood Cup.
Okay.
So Major League Fishing hasn't necessarily, I know it seems that they've tried to just wipe out FLW, but of course they had to acquire a company and then build it to what helps Major League Fishing grow even more.
Yeah.
It would not be beneficial to them to have left it at FLW.
Right.
But you're exactly right. It's the title now. It's a belt, not a cup. It's a different format, but it absolutely is. I consider it something that I have joined the elite group of anglers that won the cup.
Gotcha. That's awesome, man. So did you know there's going to be a belt beforehand?
I did. I did from last year because Rusty Saluski, he won it last year at Sturgeon Bay, and distinctly remember the belt because that's something that catches your eye. You know, you're used to seeing a plaque trophy, you know, something. Of course, we had the silver cup with the Forest Wood Cup for so many years, and then the belt. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's got a different ring to it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Somebody said you guys had to wear it the whole time out next year. Something you obviously do you qualify for the Big 5 next year automatically with your win?
Of course, I qualified for the Pro Circuit season through the regular season this year with a top 75 finish in AOI points, and I qualified for the title with a top 50 or actually top 48, but I'm automatically in next year's title regardless of my AOI points finish due to my win.
Okay.
The Angler of the Year winner and the title winner both get an automatic bid into next year's title championship.
Gotcha. Very nice.
Hey guys, I'm sorry about that. I managed to, in the haste of trying to do everything, managed not to post to the primary tackle page and the Mid-South Bass Issue page. I've got that fixed now. So if you guys are joining late, I apologize. But it is what it is. I've not done this in about 2 weeks, so glad to be back in the building, out of my little quarantine
A little
room.
rusty.
And so I'm a little rusty, so I'm sorry, y'all. Luckily, somebody posted in on my private email and let me know that I screwed up. So it happens.
Quick to do that too.
They are quick to do that when they
Take
don't
it
see
easy.
it pop up. So, but everybody wanted to see Jimmy anyway. So,
That's right.
but so guys, I do apologize, but we do have it up and running now. So. Everybody wanted to see Jimmy anyway. So.
There you go. So tell us a little bit about the experience, all from the practice going into the first day of tournament and so on.
Well, it was different this time compared to most of my events in the way that I had an approved media partner in the boat with me for practice. Of course, they could not in any way, any form or fashion assist me in locating or finding, catching, so on and so forth, fish. But a good friend of mine and former travel partner from the Toyota series, Mike O'Gore from Des Moines, Iowa, he met me, and he was. It was just cool having somebody in the boat just to talk with, But he's an angler, so he understands. He wasn't rattling my head off. There was long periods of time where I was focused. We weren't talking, but and of course he helped with just all the footage that I have to try to get to make a halfway decent YouTube video. So he helped with that. He helped with putting the pizza in the dinner in the oven at night when we come in while I'm taking care of the boat, stuff like that. So that was really cool to have Mike there. And then I stayed by myself in a 2-bedroom house that I got it thinking maybe that somebody that was in the title that I maybe somewhat knew would reach out and say, hey, you traveling with anybody? And I'd already have a house. Well, that didn't happen. It didn't bother me at all because I had the whole house to myself. And I've got going on a 4-year-old at home, so peace and quiet is kind of unusual.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, just having that no distractions whatsoever, just having all my thoughts to myself was pretty cool. And the days off were awesome. David knows this. I'm a very meticulous angler. I mean, I'm not going to cut any corners whatsoever. New hooks, sharpen hooks if I have to, line. I mean, all my stuff. It takes me probably 3 times longer than it should to actually prepare for an event as far as my tackle goes. Well, with those days off, I was able to take my time doing that instead of up till midnight doing it and not getting any sleep before the tournament. So that part was awesome too. And then I love going up north. The weather was unbelievable. It got hot during the event, but for the most part, 80 during the day and 55, at night. So beautiful weather, and that river bottom in the La Crosse area is just so gorgeous. Everything is so green, and there's just tons of vegetation of all kinds. It blows my mind how everything grows up so fast when that place is froze for half the year, So,
Yes, I'm right.
So all that was really good. I ate a ribeye steak on, let's see, my first day was Tuesday for Group A, and I put a ribeye on the grill Monday night, and I did okay on Tuesday, not great, but Danielle, my wife, said you need to eat a ribeye again for Thursday night, for Thursday. So Wednesday night I went and got another ribeye. I did better. So Friday night I had to eat one before the knockout round, and then I make championship day, and the first thing Danielle says when I talk to her, she's like, "You better go get a dadgum ribeye." So I had to rush to the store and get a ribeye and cook it while I'm like trying to get all my tackle together. So I ate 4 ribeyes.
Superstitious.
Yeah, you're a superstitious angler?
I'm really not, but
His wife is,
when you got something going like that, you don't want to give room to look back and say, why didn't you just go get another dang ribeye?
Just get it.
It's realized from now on, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So I guess I'll be like Wade Boggs and the chicken sandwich.
There you go.
He'd eat a chicken sandwich before every baseball game. So that'd get expensive though.
Yeah, especially ribeye.
Yeah.
I had to opt out for a bratwurst or something.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all. So do in your tournaments, do you typically like to have somebody meet you out there and just in the boat with you during practice, just kind of help keep your mind going and stuff like that, or do you typically like to practice by yourself?
I unless we have an approved media representative, we can't have anyone in the boat with us.
Okay.
And so I'm used to practicing by myself. It was cool having Mike there. It was different, but I definitely wouldn't be very inviting to. There's probably a very, very, very small list of people that I would let be a media representative in the boat with me during practice, because it would have to be somebody that thinks like me and understands, like, we're not here to talk about Cardinals baseball or
You're there to
things.
work,
And Mike really, really understood. Like, I mean, there was probably times where there was 2 or 3 hours of we weren't talking,
Yeah.
but he also read me out, and it was beneficial to him too. I would make a decision or do something, and he could tell when I was in the right mind frame to elaborate on it. So he learned some stuff too. So that's what was cool about it. But I've practiced with people that I didn't know real well before, and not that I know everything by any means, and that I'm the greatest angler on earth, because I'm not. I'm not any better than a lot of than the next guy. I'm fortunate, and I rely on my instinct and have some success with that. But when in practice, when somebody else starts chirping in and it kind of clashes with me, and that'll take you down the wrong path.
Yeah, for sure.
It's one of the things I like about a kayak, because there ain't nobody in there.
You don't have to worry about it.
You still pick up your phone.
I do still
We
pick up
did
my
at
phone.
Rayburn. I think we were on the phone quite a bit at Rayburn.
We were, because I was having a slight meltdown on
Yeah,
Saturday
yeah.
morning. But
Was this your? You were there last year, weren't you? At Upper Mississippi.
Yes.
Was this your second time visiting there?
It was.
Okay.
And last year was a huge benefit. The river last year was at about 6 feet. And I know you have no idea what that relates to up there, but 6 feet is low. And we heard people griping in the locals saying, oh, the fishing's been so tough because the river's so low. It's as low as it's been in 10 years. Well, we go up there this year, and I look at the river stage, and it's 5 feet and falling. And I'm like, maybe I'm forgetting what last year's was. Maybe it was 4 feet, not 6 feet, because they talked about how low it was. Well, I get up there and it's 5 feet. It's a foot lower than it was the year before.
Wow.
Navigation is an absolute nightmare. I mean, there's so many winding sloughs and backwaters and connecting waterways, and it looks like wide open water, and it's that deep. And that water is so tannic because of all the vegetation that a lot of times you can't look ahead and see, even if you're idling, that there's a sandbar there, and all of a sudden you're stuck. There's so many sand drops where it goes from 3 feet to nothing.
Yeah.
And so being there last year and knowing the areas that I could, having a ground basis set for navigation was a huge deal, because I didn't have to idle everywhere in 2 days of practice.
Right.
I could get up and run with confidence. Some of the stuff I ran, I'm thinking, I hope I don't end up having to take myself off the sandbar, but for the most part, I was able to cover the whole pool 8 in 2 days of practice.
Wow. So you pretty much stuck to a particular pool. I mean, just kind of.
Yes, well, we had the options of pool 7, 8, and 9. Takeoff was out of lacrosse on pool 8. There was, to me, with a 50 angler field that's cut in half, you know, Group A and Group B,
Right.
there was absolutely no reason for me to invest time off of pool 8 and have to worry with locking
Yeah.
and such a small field.
Yeah.
Yeah, which on the second day of B, there was a lot of concern Mitch wasn't gonna make it back through that lot.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, they had a couple of really big barges coming in, and, you know, he had this big bag, and everybody's like, we're getting close.
See, I didn't want to live with that stress. Last year Mitch was late on day 3, cost him, you know, several places
Yeah.
because he was locking through and got held up.
Wow.
So, lacrosse is kind of fell into your wheelhouse a little bit, being a lot of largemouth plus some smallmouth. You could do a little of both. Did you like that mix, or would you have opted to have been more of a largemouth lake or more of a smallmouth lake?
I like river fish.
Right.
So to me, I don't discriminate if they're, you know,
Green or
smallmouth or largemouth. If they want to eat a topwater, then I'm sure gonna set the hook. But no, the smallmouth up there are totally different than the northern smallmouth that have really had my number the last 2 years. So I mean, you don't have to throw a drop shot in 30 feet of water. So, and I really don't know what my wheelhouse is. I've thought about that, and people have asked me, well, what's your strong suit or your best technique? I really don't know. I used to say a swim bait offshore, but heck, I don't get to really ever do that, especially not in tournaments. So, I don't know what my wheelhouse is, but I do know that I have confidence fishing grass. A lot of that's from the Tennessee River, you know. And if you look on the schedule, like Harris Chain last year, where I had a great finish, offshore hydrilla. Potomac River, I had a great finish this year with offshore grass. And so I feel comfortable around grass. That's something that a vast fishery of grass can really spin you out. But I feel like I can break that down a little quicker than if I didn't have so much grass experience. But river fishing in general, it's something that I've done all my life with. I mean, you look at reservoirs, they don't really set up like rivers, but we've always fished the upper end of Sardis when I grew up, you know, was growing up. So current related stuff, and then all the Mississippi River oxbows. So a Mississippi River bass in the Memphis area is 100% a totally different fish than one in La Crosse, 850 miles north. But there are still some similarities on what they do when they pull out, what they do when they pull up. You know, the times of day that they seem to get particular with their feeding, and they forage on shad. So it was something that I had some familiarity with for the last 30 years of my life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I heard a lot of guys talk about, you know, minor subtleties, minor drops and stuff like that. You know, it kind of reminded me of like the Dardanelle, you know, when the water's low out there. I've only been there a couple of times, but I know you've had a BFL win there, haven't you?
No, not at Dardanelle.
Oh, okay.
I won a BFL at Pickwick. I had an 8th place finish at Dardanelle in 2016 in the regional.
Okay.
I choked. I went from 5th to 8th on day 3, and missed making All-American. But I have had a couple of good events at Dardanelle, and it is similar.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say about the La Crosse area is it's probably twice as minuscule as far as the details that fish will get on. I had, on day 1, I caught fish on a big flat, and I found a drop. I didn't find the drop until like the 3rd day of the tournament, or really even know what they were sitting on. But day 1 of Group A, I'm fishing a eelgrass line, and I just happened to see a shad flick out here to my left, and if it wasn't that happy flick, it was that, man, something's trying to eat me,
Yeah.
you know, and I picked up a walking bait and threw it out there, and just got destroyed. And I ended up pulling down and catching 15 fish off of a drop that went from 1.5 foot to 2.5.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, how are there that many fish in that shallow of water?
Right.
But that's the kind of stuff that they would set up on. This,
Yeah.
and this was the biggest do nothing little drop. You know, it's very unique how those fish will congregate on something that seems like nothing.
I know.
And if you find a place that you say, man, they're going to be here. This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And they're not there, but they're 100 yards over there on something stupid. You know,
Yeah.
it's just the way. That's
Out
the
around
way
a
it
twig,
is.
you went
Yeah.
on a 1/2 foot drop. Yeah.
Yep.
It's crazy. I've experienced that at Dardanelle before. I mean, you think that you would see the backs, their backs coming out of the water
Mhm.
because it's just like a 1/2 foot drop, if
Yep.
less. But they're just thick as thieves in there, you know.
Yep.
That's awesome. Yeah.
We're having a little bit of trouble with audio, so if you guys can talk a little bit louder. I'm not sure why we're having audio issues tonight.
I don't know if this one's staying on.
It wouldn't be a Lines End show if we weren't having some kind of issues.
Hit the top button up there. Hit that very
Yeah,
top
it's
button.
the top button. It's not staying.
I've had a couple of guys talk. Is it not staying on?
No, they're not staying on.
This is our, it's always something,
Always
guys.
something.
We're gonna eventually get some better audio and video equipment. The camera's a little blurry too, because we're so far back. What else, what else did you learn? I mean, what else did you, is there anything else that you could that translates to down here? I mean, I know one of the things I heard, and one of the things, like when we were interviewing you, when I was interviewing you last week from home, Mitch was, not Mitch, it was, oh gosh, one of the guys, his fish weren't eating real well, and towards the end of the day, and one of the guys had locked, and towards the end of the day, the wind began to blow a little bit, and he was pushing that lock time left and right because he didn't have a limit yet. He was just trying to catch that last couple of fish, and ended up culling by pushing his lock time. Ended up being able to cull. And, I thought it was interesting. They did such a good job of coverage this year. I think better than what I've seen before, as far as a lot of the informational pieces. It was really good this year, and I thought it was really well put together as far as that piece goes. So, is there anything else that you can kind of think about that's something we can pass on to the guys here, or?
Those fish did not like instability in water level. We had sometimes a slow fall on a river system is good because it'll put fish in predictable places. Well, those fish, it almost would turn them into, it would make them where you had to finesse fish for them. Just the instability, and then in the afternoons they would seem to get over it. And I'm saying that, and I caught a bunch of fish on topwater in the mornings, but you could definitely tell the days that the river fluctuated more. Like, the first day of the event compared to practice, I got to some eelgrass that I had been catching fish in, and the eelgrass is like the whole mat's out of the water, and I was throwing a buzzbait over it in practice. Well, there was definitely it was like it upset the fish, all that fluctuation. So, and that's something with anything on the Mississippi River. But my experience down here, when the river is rising, like Tunica, for example, if the river's in it and it's rising, you are going to have a rough time,
Right.
more than likely. Up there, the rise did not seem to bother them as much as the fall, and I guess that's because the fish live in such shallow conditions. They're just a shallow-natured fish anyway. But that was one thing that I took away from it for sure. A buzzbait in high sun at 2 o'clock in the afternoon with a little bit of chop, and they would eat it. And that goes down here too.
Right.
We always think about a buzzbait. You got to catch them on it before the sun comes over the trees. But the buzzbait is a big fish bait later on in the day, and that was something I really kind of got away from the buzzbait until Jeremy and Billy Doyle, got together and built some buzzbaits that I really have some confidence in. Before that, I threw an old lunker lure.
Right.
I've got some 20-year-old baits.
Right.
and I just had lost confidence. It was one of those things that I look back on and I said, you know, it was one of those baits you look back on and you're like, why did I quit throwing it? Because you just catch fish on it.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, that BRD buzzbait, I don't know, you probably will find one in my rod box all the time now. I really built a lot of confidence. And I caught him at Okeechobee on it. Caught him somewhere else this year. I've been all over the world, it feels like, and then smashed him at lacrosse on it. So it's definitely back in the confidence zone for sure.
There you go. And you know, that's something that I've seen over the years too. I kind of go through those cycles, and there's always that one confidence bait that's always that one that you never really let go of. I think it's bush pig, of course. But I mean, I went through a cycle when I first knew you, where I fished a rattle trap or some type of rattle bait like all the freaking time. And then I went through a cycle where for a couple of years where I threw a spinnerbait almost so religiously it was stupid. And we all do that. I mean, I think we all do. I think there's certain guys. I mean, Jeff Morris at River City is known as the Carolina rig guy. That's all he ever throws. Tommy Pickett's another one of those. I mean, and everybody has those certain baits that they throw. But I mean, we do have those baits that we kind of go through cycles with that we just kind of use. And it's like, why haven't I thrown that in a while? So
yes, especially like when new baits come out, like chatterbait. You know, it came out. A lot of people put down the spinnerbait.
That's right.
And then you know, 5 years later, you pick back up the spinnerbait, you wonder why or put it down.
Yeah.
Because it still catches fish. You know?
Still catches big fish.
Yeah.
So, one of the questions we have on here is explaining, and I have a question to that as well anyway. You picked up a Nico rig on the last day. What in the world possessed you to throw a Nico rig in 2 foot of water?
So, I'm by no means a finesse expert. I'm confident with it from fishing the Tennessee River. Fluorocarbon light lines, sometimes you have to do it. So I really went into the championship day thinking and hoping that I was going to go throw a big topwater
all day
and catch 16 or 17 pounds and be done with it. Go back up in the Black River and hope like heck I could catch another 3-pounder and upgrade. Well, it never works out like you plan it. But I caught my first 4 on the topwater, and I'll tell you what, let's remind, we'll answer the Nico rig, but y'all remind me to come back to the cadence on the walking bait. That was really cool. So they just get off the topwater. I go 20 minutes without catching one on topwater. The sun's getting up. There's not enough chop on the water. I'm not seeing them move the big shad like they were the day before when I caught the 2 kickers on topwater. And it just felt like it was just screaming, you got to do something to slow down. I just felt like there was more fish there, and I was not giving them what they wanted. So I pull out a shaky head. I throw it up there, and it's literally like fishing a rock jetty, rip-rap jetty, nasty chunk rock that goes from, on the backside, 35 foot up to 1.5 foot. It kind of tapered on top and then fell back into 20. And the current pushed straight into it. So you didn't want to get on top of it because you're sitting on top of fish in 1.5 foot of water. You're spooking the fish. The only thing you could do is get downstream and throw over it at an angle. Well, I threw the shaky head and I tried to guess exactly where the top of the thing was and flick it out there and hold my rod up high and shake it, you know, work it quick. The first cast, I'm like, it's mushy. I bet that's a fish. And I feel the fish spit it out. I'm like, should have set the hook. I look at my worm, teeth marks straight down it where I literally pulled it out of his teeth, you know.
See, we didn't want to do that.
Second cast, I catch a little baby. And third cast, I get hung, break it off. I'm like, shoot. Sit down, tie on another shaky head. Next cast, I don't think I catch one. The 5th cast with a shaky head, I get hung, break it off. I said, well, I'm not tremendous at math, but losing 2 shaky heads in 5 casts, that's not very efficient. So I just sat and thought for a second. I said, what in the world, finesse-wise, can I attack this with and not get hung? Nico rig. I used to throw the Nico rig long before it was known as the Japanese secret of the Nico rig at Pickwick with a 7-inch Senko, nail-weighted, wacky style. It's the same thing.
Right.
So, and I knew from from my experience then that it pencil dives quickly, but when it hits the bottom, if you hold your rod up and you work it right, your hook stays off the bottom. So I said, well, we'll give it a try. I pull out literally the first bag of finesse worms that I could get to, and I really don't think that part mattered one bit, but I had a wacky style hook and a 3/32 ounce tungsten nail weight. I rammed in the head of that worm, flicked it out there, and literally as soon as it hit the water, I had one freight train and it heading the other way. So I catch that fish and I'm like, well, there might be something to this. I mean, I caught fish on like the first couple or 3 casts with an eco rig, and then the light bulb was lit then.
Yeah.
This is something they like, and I only got hung maybe once or twice with it.
Yeah.
You just, the way that worm, so the Nico rig, if anybody that doesn't know about it, like this is a clone Ringo that I'm going to use for an example, but we've got the tail end where it tapers, and then we've got a fatter head end. So what you're going to do is the nail weight would go in the head end of the worm, and you're going to rig it. I like to go about 2/3, maybe 60% above center. So if center is 50% from the head, I'll go a little bit more and go, maybe about 2/3, and just wacky rig it with like a number 1 or number 2 or 2/0, wacky style hook. I was using a G finesse with a weed guard that gave me a little extra protection in those rocks. And what that bait does when it lands, it casts pretty good, but when it lands, all the weight's in the head and it dives like a pencil. And when it lands on the bottom, the hook suspends above the bottom, so you're not getting hung in those rip-rap cracks. And all it takes is you basically fish it just like a shaky head, work it slowly. It does not take a lot of action imparted by yourself, because you can see that thing. It's really gonna kick up, just with a little bit of action in your rod tip, and that's all there is to it. It's simple. It's almost dumb. I don't want to call it dumb because it just made me a lot of money.
Just almost.
Compared to what I consider my strong suits,
Yeah.
it's not something that I ever would have imagined. And it's certainly something that I did not throw any other time during the event, except on championship morning about 9 o'clock. I decided to put one on.
You just never know.
That's right.
You
That's
don't.
right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's just crazy.
It's also a pretty good deep water tactic as well.
Oh, yeah,
too.
absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, it covers more water than some finesse techniques, because even though it's a light finesse style presentation, the way it pencil dives, you make a long cast in 20 foot of water and it gets down pretty quick.
Yeah.
Even though it's a pretty light rig. So it's also great with forward sonar nowadays of pinpointing fish. You can, like what Shin was doing at Chickamauga, you can throw it out, count it down, or watch it on forward sonar, and then work it by a fish. And when you give it action, it disperses that pencil style dive that it has, and it'll almost suspend like a wacky rig until you kill it and actually give it a little bit of slack, and then it'll get back, into a pencil style dive and fall again. So really, really a cool rig.
So you mentioned your cadence.
The cadence on the walking bait. So the afternoon of the knockout round, I found those fish, and I pulled into this backwater area that I caught a big one in practice frogging, and I ran back down there Tuesday, day 1, that afternoon, and frogged it again, and I missed a 4-pounder. The fish just hit a buzzing frog with his mouth shut and knocked it, that high out of the water. I saw the whole fish right in front of me. That's the only bite I got. Well, I go back down there Saturday after I felt like the Black River had just dried up. I had 8.5 pounds midday. And I said, I'm not going to die up here in the Black River. So I go down there. As I'm going into this backwater area, I remembered this closing down, because during practice, I'm covering water, got my motor trimmed down, slinging a buzz bait. Wham! I find it with the skeg of the motor. Like it's one of those where you almost get thrown out in front of the boat,
Yeah.
So I'm like, there's a rock structure that goes across there. So Saturday, I get up a little bit too close to it, and I back up with a trolling motor, and my prop wash swirls out in front of me, and it scares a big shad, and I see a boil behind the big shad. And I said, I know what that was, and if that was a bass eating a shad that size, that's like some Tennessee River stuff, because this was a mega shad. Well, I throw a frog in there, and a fish blows up behind it, but he didn't. I just happened to have a frog in my hand. I flick it in there. And then I cycle through some more baits out there, and I think my prop wash just dispersed them on that little portion of the closing dam. And I fish around, and I just chalk it up to that was just a fluke that a random fish happened to be out here, you know, and that was attracted by that shad running.
Right.
So I go back in and I frog real quick, and it's kind of eating at me like there was a big shad out there and there was a big fish that was behind it. And I tried to tell myself, oh, it was a pike or, you know, something, a grinnell or something, but I kept saying, no, you know enough about bass fishing to know what a shad looks like when there's a 4 or 5 pound bass trying to eat him. And I had a fish blow up behind my frog that wouldn't eat it.
Yeah.
So I'm coming back out, and I hit anchor mode, and the wind's blowing at my back. I walk to the back deck with my walking bait. I make a long cast out there, and I was thinking of the shad and how I didn't get bit with the top water when I first pulled in after I missed the fish on the frog. I was just, you know, working a walking bait like you normally do. So I said, well, I'm gonna just try to do something tricky. The fish all week seemed like you had to trick them. I mean, they weren't your dumb northern largemouth. It's like they're pressured or something. So I throw that spook out, and I walk it real fast. Click, 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 click. And I get it right in what I felt like was right on the top of that closing dam. And I didn't stop it, but I slowed it to a cadence to where it would twitch and glide to a stop. And as soon as it would stop, I would twitch it again. And the second twitch, a 5 pounder flushed the toilet on it. And he ate it, okay? He absolutely ate it. I throw it back out there after I get that fish in the boat. I'm so hopped up, you know. I go back to working it normal. Another big one comes up behind it, and then another one blows it out of the water. This is in the second cast, and I'm like freaking out, you know. And they would not eat it on that normal cadence. I'm stressed to the max now. I'm like, why won't they eat it? I throw back in there and miss 2 more big ones, and then it's like, duh, do what you did the first time. I throw it back out there. Twitch, 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 slow it down to where it just glides to a stop, and like the third time it does that, the 4 1/4 just flushes the toilet on it. And it 100% every fish I caught on the walking bait, that's what I had to do. If I just threw it out there and walked it, it was like they had seen that before. It was almost like they were smart enough to hit it with their mouth shut, because a lot of them would just blow it out of the water. I mean, it'd be this giant explosion, especially the smallmouth. It would look like you dropped a piano in the water, and your bait would go phew and come back down. But man, when you slowed it down, and a couple of times I even twitched it where I really felt like there was a fish looking at it, and would just let it sit. 5, 8 seconds, and all of a sudden, they wouldn't just slurp it. They would try to take the rod out of your hand.
Yeah, I heard you say that on live. You had to let it sit there for a
Yeah.
while. Yeah.
So that was, I've never caught fish with that exact, having to trick them that much with a walking bait, but it was almost like that shad was really trying to get away from them, and then all of a sudden it was, you know, just dying.
Yeah, it's glide. Yeah.
And they could not stand it.
So that fast twitch got its attention.
That's
broke
right,
that
and
shot.
got them following
And
it.
then once they're committed to it, and that slow glide, it's like, I gotta get it.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
that's wild.
If I wouldn't have figured that out, I don't think I would have caught those fish on the first afternoon, because they just would not eat it. They would come up and show themselves, but you were not going to catch one working it like you know, regular working it.
So that was in the knockout round that you discovered that?
Yes.
So when you go back into your championship day, you went back to that spot. Did you immediately do that same cadence?
Absolutely. I thought about that well that night before. Like, that was, I was pumped about figuring that out. And I go there the next day. Y'all heard the story. I had a guy that was pulled up on the place and was fishing it, and my heart sinks when I pull up there and see somebody else on it, because all night I'm thinking about that. The whole ride down the river that morning, I'm like, what if I get there and somebody's, you know, doubled up on 5s or something? And sure enough, there's a guy fishing it. When I pull up, he's nice as can be. I don't even have to ask him to move. He just picks his trolling motor up and leaves. I get up there and get my boat positioned right, and it's like I'm ready for battle. Like I'm literally about to, like, I feel like I'm on the SWAT team about to go kick a door in or something, and I throw the bait out there, twitch, slow it down. I'm like, all right, he's about to eat it. I'm telling the cameraman I'm confident. Nothing. I don't get a bite. And then the wheels start turning. Well, the river rose overnight 5 inches. This guy was fishing it. I caught him here yesterday. It's, you know, things are not good. Surely I couldn't make one cast and not catch one there if they were there. Second cast, I do the same thing. As soon as I slow it down, give it that twitch, 3-pounder eats it. And I'm like, oh, so there's still some fish here. So that was the ticket there, and I ended up catching 2 smallmouth, good smallmouth right after that. I even changed walking baits to a pencil popper style, and one of those hit it. I swear I let that bait sit there 10 seconds, and that fish ate it.
Wow.
And then I caught another largemouth back on the spook. Yeah, that was 4. And then I want to say I had to go finesse before I even caught a limit. I'm not sure. I might have caught a 2-pounder on the walking bait and filled my limit before I went finesse.
Gotcha. I heard you talk a little bit about braid and mono leader on live. And you gave a specific reason why you're using it in that circumstance. Do you always use braid and mono leader with your walking baits or no?
Not always. They're great for a long cast, but the reason that it benefited me so well at lacrosse last week is I told you a lot of fish would hit the bait and not eat it, especially if you didn't really do that slower cadence. And on a long cast, I mean, you'd have fish, it's hard to explain, but you would literally have fish hit a foot behind your bait and make it look like they just destroyed your bait, you know. Well, with that braid, with no stretch, I could just tighten my line and tell if that fish got it, because if you set the hook, you would booger that school. These fish were smart, and you were not going to throw back in there and catch them. So you had to, if they missed it, you had to let it sit and then go back to working it regular, you know, going back to your cadence, and they'd come back and hit it again, or they'd hit it on the next cast. Well, with mono, you can't tell on a 35-yard cast if that fish ate it or not without really reeling into him. So with that braid with no stretch, a medium heavy cranking rod that had a strong blank with lots of tip, and then about probably 30 inches of mono, just enough to forgive all that braid.
Yeah.
That was the perfect combination for me to be able to tell if they got it and just be able to just lean into them a little bit and get that hook in them a long way out there, and you know, really just tell if the fish ate it or not.
Yeah. So was that something that you kind of pieced together? I mean, I'm sure you've done it before in your experience. Was it something that you kind of determined in your practice, or day one, you know, or first round or second round that, hey, I need to kind of change things up? Or
Day one, I had a top water on straight mono, 15-pound big game, and then I had one on braid. And the first bite I got, the fish blew it out of the water, and that right there told me on a long cast I need to go to the braid, because I can feel if those fish get it. I learned a long time ago, you do not set the hook on a you know, a walking bait or a Zuma Popper Z or whatever type of surface lure. You do not set the hook on sight. And I've caught a lot of fish that miss the bait on the first you know, attempt at that. Sometimes I swear I think they just want to test it, you know, and check it, you know.
play with it a little bit.
Yeah.
It kind of sounds like what you're talking about. They're just seeing if it's real.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
playing with it, you
And
know?
if you set the hook, it's like, yeah, that don't look right. So,
That's a lot easier said than done.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
it is.
I want to say we were talking about this in another podcast that we did,
Yeah.
or in a conversation where the fish were sucking the bait in and then spitting it
Spitting
back
it
out.
out, yeah.
What was that? I can't remember what that was, but
I'm trying to remember. We've
it
talked
goes
about
in
this
line
before.
with what you're talking about, how they're just toying with it, you know?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's interesting.
One thing I noticed, and David actually has one up here. This was not staged. He just had this stuff up here for, I think, something else he's going to talk about maybe. But the Popper Z on days 1 and 2 especially, and even day 3 when I got my early limit before I went down to what I ended up calling the moose hole, because it had a bunch of moose on it, a bunch of big ones. But the Popper Z, I was throwing Blue Bahama, but those pressured fish that, you know, would only eat the walking bait with a certain type of cadence, and they were really bad about blowing them out of the water, they would eat that little guy for, I think it's just the profile and how well the bait walks, and you've got a feather on the back. Some of those fish were keying on tiny bait up in the Black River. And I was editing some footage for part 1 of my video that hopefully will post tomorrow night. But I remember, I knew I had a Popper Z tied on, and I pulled it out and I got a bite really quick, but I literally pulled the rod out, unhook the bait off the reel, turn around, cast, twitch it twice, set the hook, and one had it like head first in his gills. And I had forgot that, you know, because it's such a long week and I had to make so many decisions, but I was like, wow, they really like the Popper Z. So that was a big deal, and that's something that applies in the South with what we call COVID stress on fish, with so many guys have been fishing for 2 years now.
Yeah.
Our fish are smart.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're not smart, they get caught 3 times a day. So that little Popper Z or any chugging topwater that you got confidence in and can make walk is a good way to catch topwater fish.
Yeah. I had a couple questions from folks that have been watching. A little bit about on your Nico rig, a little bit about your line size, and a little bit about that basic rod and reel line setup.
10-pound braid. Honestly, the reason I threw 10-pound braid is because I still had it on from St. Lawrence River.
Right.
And I like 10-pound braid. Sometimes I go up to 15, especially around vegetation or if I want a little bit more lift. But I had 10-pound yellow braid. I love the yellow. I've gotten to where I can't fish green because I can't see it. I feel like I'm blind. I literally feel like I'm fishing with a bandana on. A bandana over my eyes, what I meant. But the fluorocarbon leader, I like throwing one that's definitely long enough to not impede the presentation of the lure. I don't want them seeing that yellow line, so I normally throw one anywhere from 10 to 20 feet long. I have become efficient with the FG knot, and there's no better knot on earth. If you don't tie it right, you might as well tie a square knot and you know, not even pull it tight. But if you tie it right, it can't be beat. It's the only knot that I've ever tied on braid to fluorocarbon that if I get hung, I can break my hook off and it breaks at the hook every time with a Palomar knot. Right. A uni to uni, the Alberto, a bunch of knots that I've tried in the past, they wouldn't do that. So, and it's so streamlined. But that was the setup, 10-pound fluorocarbon, 7-foot medium heavy. It was a medium heavy spinning rod, and just a good old faithful Shimano reel. So that was the setup on the Nico rig. The shaky head, the same thing on day 2, Thursday of Group A, that I caught fish. I ended up having to pull a shaky head out to catch my limit on that morning after the fog delay. I tried to force the topwater about an hour and a half and finally hit myself in the head and said, it's flat, calm, and hot, sun beaming down, no wind. Why don't you make an adjustment? So that's what it took on day 2.
Yeah. So
was there another question?
I think that answered most of those questions that were sitting out there.
And that was the same for the shaky head and the Nico rig, and that's normally what I'll throw. If I was Nico rigging on the Tennessee River in 20 foot of water, then I would definitely throw it on a 7.6 medium heavy. Just because you can take up so much more line and you know, that your hook set is so much more efficient with an extra 6 inches of rod.
Yeah, we might try to get some real quick tips and technique videos done down the road where we can kind of talk a little bit more in depth about some of that. Yeah, I saw you tying that darn FG knot on. I was like, good Lord have mercy. There's absolutely no way. My old eyeballs would not be able to see that line that well to tie that stupid thing. Not to mention it's just so dang complicated.
And you know the fish that really, I honestly don't know if I beat Bobby Lane if I don't catch that fish that
one
got
that
me
got
hog
hung
tied.
up. I know.
And
I was
that,
about to choke
that
on that
FG
one.
knot, I could, believe it or not, I could feel me going from braid to fluorocarbon. And if I'd have had an Alberto knot or something, it'd have been a larger profile and it would have been grinding into it, and I guarantee it would have chewed the knot up and broke it. So, I mean but that was an absolute miracle, regardless of anything that I did or the knot that I tied or the line that I put trust in. I mean, that was a miracle to have a fish just seesawing on a 10-pound line, and he comes out just with, I mean, like nothing, like it never happened. You know, he just swims out and swims to the surface. I dropped the net.
I'm sitting there watching that, freaking having an absolute panic attack, and Jimmy's just sitting there on TV, just as calm as he can be.
I don't know about that. My heart was in my
It translated over the TV as you were freaking calm as you could be, and I'm like, holy crap, I'm about to lose my mind.
Two things I noticed, you know, just I didn't watch the full live. I was in Florida with family, but the bit that I did get to catch, you could tell a distinct difference between your approach. I mean, you were very patient with, you know, catching the fish, getting them to the boat, even using net. I didn't see anybody else using a net. A lot of the guys that were from the BPT and just seasoned veterans. I know you've been fishing for a long time, but a lot of these guys have been on the tour, they've been at that level for such a long time. You know, they're just wheeling them in, you know, boat flipping them, all this kind of stuff. But man, you were just so locked in, so patient with getting those fish to the boat. I mean, it was your time, man. You did everything right. It just came together.
Well, that morning, when I set out, actually that night laying in bed, I said to myself, you've got to stay focused and take away any of the controllable variables. Because there are a lot of uncontrollable variables in fishing, like the fish getting me around, whatever that was, a piece of drift that had got blown up on that closing down, or whatever, a log or a rock or whatever. That's uncontrollable. But the fact that I made sure that I had good equipment that could hold up to, you know, hopefully anything that I gave to it. I made sure I had a sharp hook that got good penetration. All those controllable variables will sometimes create a favorable outcome for the uncontrollable variables. And 100% what I've learned, not just at the professional level, but tenfold at the professional level. You know, I've learned it before then, but now a little mistake is thousands of dollars. So the one thing I've learned is if you cut corners, if you let one thing that would take an extra 30 seconds to make it right, but you don't do it, then it will bite you and it will hurt you. So that's something that I just, even when I'm fun fishing now, hook point gets dull, I got a little nick above my knot, just simple stuff like that, I'm fixing it, because it's just become second nature that it's not worth cutting corners.
There you go.
So this is a good segue into the next questions, I think. Title champion, what's next for Jimmy Washam? We talked a little bit about before we started the podcast, you know, about your job, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You don't want to get into anything you don't want to talk about.
No, I am considering starting to guide at Pickwick, so that'll be something it'll be part-time, of course, and you know, that we'll see what happens with the partnerships that may grow from this. I'm confident that there will be some growth there, so I'm going to do everything I can to try to make sure that I capitalize on that. And you know, the pro circuit next year, y'all have seen the schedule. I'm pumped about that.
Just a little excited about that schedule.
I am.
Just
and
a tad.
I might go and finish 150th next year. Who knows? But I'll tell you, the one thing that I am very conscious of already is not letting a win of this magnitude take away any of my drive. That's something that I'm going to have to, because necessity and the stress and all the negative things that come with necessity, like, man, I got to go make a paycheck to make sure I get by this year, or this or that. Those stresses will put an incredible drive in you. Well, when you take that away, when you have an event that you know, creates some financial stability for at least my next season of fishing, that can take that drive away. So how do you replace it? It's got to be with self-drive, self-motivation. So I'm very conscious of that. That's why I can already feel that burn inside of me about wanting to get ready for the Toyota Series and put this behind me. But then I also have to like kind of blink, like, dude, it's been 5 days and you won the title. You got to kind of take it in a little
Just
bit.
a little bit, yeah. Well, and I don't foresee that being a problem. I mean, look, I've been around you for, since you were 18, so about 16 years now. And I've always seen that drive in you. I mean, irregardless, I mean, I've fished out of the back, pre-fished out of the back of the boat for BFLs with him. And I've been, I've been around him fishing little club stuff and watched him, going to freaking looking at a $200 club tournament like it was the title. I mean, he's sitting in his room while the rest of us are out drinking beer and playing poker, and he's sitting in his room retying stuff and getting his crap together and making sure he's ready for the next day to go kick our butts, and which he did on a regular basis. So I don't foresee that being an issue at all from a drive standpoint.
I'll tell you, I mentioned on another one of I've done so many interviews, podcasts, in the last few days. I did a boatload of them on the drive home, which was good. It kept me awake and driving. But I mentioned in one of them about appreciating the win. Last year, in my second professional event, I almost won the Harris chain. I think if it had been 4 days instead of losing a day to weather, I probably would have won that event. And after that, I was disappointed that something that may never ever have the opportunity may never come again to have the opportunity to win a professional event. I mean, things just it doesn't happen very often. And I was a little bit disappointed, and then I realized shortly thereafter, what if I would have won my second professional event? Where would I be now?
Yeah.
Would I have the same drive? I don't think I would. I think partnerships would have come easier. I think that I would have been, more accepted by the elite anglers, and not that really matters for anything, but there would have been a lot of factors there that I would have had to have battled from early success.
Yeah.
And the main thing is the self-motivation and the drive.
Yeah.
But now I feel like in 2 years of working full-time and fishing full-time, I've developed the ability to appreciate that win as well as if it happened 30 years from now. So.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I got a question for you, and this is something I've kind of started asking just some various people in my walk of life, from business professionals to, just successful people and just everyday individuals. It's a two-part question I got for you, and you kind of talked a little bit about it, but first question is, what drives you? And the second question is, what's one characteristic of yourself that if you didn't have it, you probably wouldn't be successful in tournament fishing?
Those are really in-depth questions.
I've left some people stunned with those, but
you could definitely do an essay on those and have you fill up the paper. But what drives me is just wanting to be better for sure, and I think what drives me in fishing so much is, yes, you have competition. You have, depending on the field size, you got however many other guys that you have to beat, but you really have to beat the fish, and you have to beat what you consider is your best. If you can be better than what you think is your best, then you're improving, and that's the way I progressed through tournament fishing. I started at the BFLs, and I said, I started in River City, and I said, I've gotten to where I'm successful at this level. What's next? I'm not going to sit here and bask in the glory of, not that there's, I do not mean that negatively, but I'm not going to bask in the glory of winning a club tournament when I should be fishing a BFL.
Right.
So then I go to the BFLs, I find success there, and then I say, I'm not stopping here, let's move up. I go to the Toyota Series, it takes me a little bit longer, but I finally get to where I find success there. I say, it's a huge risk, but it's a dream of mine. I'm going to move up. So that's what drives me is getting better, being better than what I think right now is my best. So I hope that next year I'm a better angler than I am right now.
Absolutely.
remind me of the second part. You have my wheels turning so hard on the first one.
So the second one is, what's one characteristic of yourself that if you didn't possess, you don't think that you would be successful in tournament fishing?
I think it's, and this probably doesn't go for everybody, because you see guys that, like Harold McKee would pick up an old rusty jig, and you know, if the hook was rusty, that means set the hook harder.
Yeah.
But for me, I think it's my meticulous nature. I'm that way with everything from my job to, if I'm gonna do something, I'm not gonna do it halfway. I'm not gonna do it sloppy. And that with tournament fishing, the little details is what makes you, that's what takes you from being, you know, okay to good. Because if okay Jimmy goes out and cuts corners and, you know, is too lazy to sharpen his hooks or fix the knot or put the bait on the right line size or the right rod set up, and just says, oh, it'll be okay, and he gets 7 bites, and then the good fisherman Jimmy goes out and does those things and he gets 8 bites, and one of those is a 4-pounder, then he just stomped the other one in the tournament.
Yeah.
You know, he just culled up 2 pounds, and he's the one that comes in with the weight. So
Yeah.
that's the way I see it. If you catch 28 fish in a day, and then you do something that makes your presentation better or your technique better, more efficient, your time management is more efficient, all these things that accumulate, and you catch 30 fish, and one of those fish gives you the edge, then that's what takes you beyond okay and makes you a good angler.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
Harold McKee, I hadn't heard that name. So most of you guys don't know who Harold is, but he was a classic old stick in this area. I mean, he was one of those really good ones that I got the pleasure of fishing with him a few times.
Yeah.
And he took me to the White River one day, and this is just a funny story just to throw in here real quick. We were catching spots on the White River, and he had broke his arm. I don't know if you remember when Harold did that. And I'm sitting at the back of the boat, and I'm catching 3 to 1, and he finally listens to me. He goes, boy, we're done. He goes, we're going somewhere else where you're not going to catch another fish till I let you. And he took me in this little backwater slough and picked up a spinner bait with that spinning rod and his broke arm. And he made sure he stayed angled where I didn't catch another fish till he looked at me and goes, you ready to catch a fish now? I was like, yep. Put the boat around, said, cast over there, caught me a fish. I was like, good God have mercy.
Yeah.
But it proved to me that he could make sure I didn't catch one if I didn't if he wasn't going to let me.
He had to keep you in check.
His boat, right?
Yeah, we were in his boat. He was a fun old dude to fish with. He was so a hell of a fisherman. But that was kind of cool. All right. Any other questions for you?
Matt, yeah.
Oh man, I'm just ecstatic.
I could ask you
with the win. It's just
Yeah.
you blew all the other questions out of the water. I'm extremely proud to know you.
Thank you.
And congratulations to you and your family.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So let's hit a few little quick things. We got a couple of announcements to make, and I had a couple questions. Rockfish gloves, do they run a little small in size? I think I know what the answer to that question is. It's not so much that they run small, but they're built to be tight so that they fit really good.
Well, so this is the Fish Baiter Pro. This is the Fish Baiter. So to answer that question a simple way, I would say yes, the Rockfish Fish Baiter Pro is going to fit smaller than probably what you expect, and the Fish Baiter is going to fit larger than what you expect. The reason behind that, these are my favorite, but I wear both of them. And I'll tell you when I wear each one. These for the summertime, they're a tight fit. The moisture wicking back is really good, but they're a full suede palm. And you know how you get a sweaty palm and you just feel like your reel could slip from your hand? And you just don't feel, you almost have to hold it differently because of sweaty hands in the summertime. Well, this full suede palm does not stretch. So you've got 0 stretch, so it fits like it is. It is what it is. This is a large. I can wear a medium in the Fish Baiter Pro, but it's pretty tight, and I have to like fist it up when I put a new pair on and kind of work it to stretch it a little bit to let my hand breathe. But I'd say I have the average size hand. The large in the Fish Baiter Pro is my favorite for just having control of the rod and reel. And I swear to you, I didn't think I would ever say that a fishing glove would make me better, but I've had an incredible year, and there's a lot of factors that add up to that. But I honestly think that the dexterity improvement that I get and the control that I get over my rod and reel, my presentation, my hook set, I think because of these gloves, it's made a huge difference. And I swear by that. If Rockfish called me right now and said, I'm sorry, but the partnership has in, I'd say, well, let me get a few gloves before we go, because I'm still going to wear them. So, the fish baiter, when I like to wear these, and if you go back and look at the Toyota Series win on Gunnersville, I was wearing these over like a stretchy, moisture wicking type, a turkey hunting glove is what it was. And these, because they're not a full suede palm, they do not stretch, or they stretch much more. So my roommate Scott Towery from the Pro Circuit this year, he is like Sasquatch. He's like 6'8" and got a big old, lobster paw of a hand, and I gave him a pair of Rockfish. These are the only ones that would fit him because his hand is so big, but they fit him great, and he loved them. So these still have enough of the suede in the palm to make sure and improve your control over your bait caster, your rod and reel, whatever you're doing. But they do have a lot more stretch fabric to them, and they're going to fit a little bit larger. They're great for wearing when it's really cold to help give you extra protection, but also you can't wear a soft cotton glove and grip a bait caster with it. So these right here allow you to do that.
There you
Yep.
go. All right. So, funny story. I'm talking to Jimmy. We're kind of rounding out the season. I've been telling you guys we were going to do different little giveaways during the course of the fall. We're wrapping up the Le Bonheur one. And I'm talking to Jimmy, and I'm like, just got Rockfish gloves in. I was like, we need to put something together just to kind of put together something for your sponsors, something that will kind of rotate around, some focus for Profound, some focus for Rockfish. Kind of get people in here to look at the gloves, get people online to look at the gloves, look at some of the other products that we have from Profound, some of the other products we have from Black Bass, some of the products we have that we use here in the store, some of the tungsten and some of the things that we do. And so we're talking about it, and like, man, we're going to call it the Jimmy Washam giveaway or something like that. And we're talking about the title, and this is the days when I was kind of traveling in practice, and he's like, well, he goes, are you in a hurry? I was like, no, I'm still trying to do some updates on the website and stuff. He goes, well, let's just see how the title goes, and we'll come up with a name. He goes, maybe we'll get lucky and it'll be the Jimmy Washam MLF Big 5 Title Championship giveaway. Maybe I get lucky and win this thing. And I'm like, all right, I said, I'm in no hurry. I'm still trying to do all these updates. So let's just kind of, day 1 rolls around, he does pretty good. Day 3 rolls around, I'm like, are we going that direction? And then knockout round comes up, and he ties Skeet Reese. I'm like, crap! Hey, I think we're gonna get there. And then I texted him right after he wins, and I'm like, kind of prophetic, I guess.
Yep.
So, but we got lucky, and so that's what we got now, the Jimmy Washam MLF Big 5 Title Championship giveaway.
This is my favorite giveaway, I promise.
I promise you, I'm more than happy for this giveaway.
Yep.
So we have, so what we're gonna do is the guys at Profound, the guys at Rockfish, we've got some stuff we're gonna throw in there. I expect we'll have something from Black Bass Tackle in there as
yes,
well.
That'll happen. I haven't even discussed it with Jeremy.
Yeah.
Before Jeremy, I was on the phone with him earlier and had to let him go. And he's my agent. I've said that since last year, jokingly, or 2 years ago, and I haven't even been able to catch up with my agent. But we'll get that worked out.
Yeah. So we, somebody else said that you really already put together a pretty good marketing plan. So your agent's been working on that, I assume. So.
What are we?
We're talking about Rockfish. Cordova safety.
Oh yeah.
Chris already said you've already hit him. Y'all already got some of it kind of put together.
Yeah, absolutely.
How many dollars is it going to take for here and there and that kind of thing. So, but it's an important piece. So, but it's just funny. We've got there's a lot to do. And I was talking to Jeremy about that the other day too. I mean, there's a lot to do to get all this put together and make sure we do capitalize on what we got going. But anyway, going there, I got sidetracked. So what we've got is the giveaway that we're talking about, and we're putting together two $150 tackle bags. That it's at least 150, guys. We're just doing it on the conservative side.
Yeah.
Leah and them are sending me a bunch of profound stuff. We've got two pair of rockfish gloves right there. It's $32, $33, $20 for a primary tackle bag. You're gonna have some primary tackle crap in there. You're gonna have some tungsten, some plastics. We're gonna have some stuff from Profound. We will have one of the new Cold Snap logo primary tackle buffs in there.
I'm excited about that.
So yeah, so you'll have one that says primary that you can wear. We'll have instead of the one that you couldn't wear because you gotta stay with the sponsors. So we're gonna have a lot of that kind of stuff on there. So we're looking forward to that. I'm trying to get with Shane and trying to do something with Hammer as well. And so, but you come in the store or go online and spend $50, and you're gonna get an entry in for one of these two bags. But the neat thing is if that $50 or at least $50 of whatever you spend, be it $50 or $100, is in sponsored product for Jimmy, it gets you 2 entries. So,
So if a guy buys Z-Boss 20s, Clone Ringos, a pair of Rockfish gloves, and
some primary tackle
plastics, and it's $50, they get 2 entries. So if they spend, because I want to make sure I got it squared away myself, if they spend $40 on the sponsored product and then they buy
something
Strike
else.
King stuff, then they get 1 entry.
1 entry.
Okay.
So
What if they spend $100 on sponsored product?
it's still going to be the 2 entries because we want to keep it as fair for everybody as we can.
Yeah, we don't want somebody buying it.
I mean, I had a guy come in today. He bought a hammer rod. He's got 2 entries.
Perfect.
So he's got 2 entries for this week. So, and this is going to run through the September 30th. So I mean, and guys, and right now for the next 14, 15, 16 days, you get to double up because we're still running the Lebanon program too. So so you're still getting into that smaller bag, but you're still giving 10% to Lebanon. So. Which is part of our Lebanon. We haven't mentioned Lebanon, so let me mention that real quick. Lebanon Bass Classic, September 11th is coming up. Going to be a bunch of rockfish gloves and a lot of those swag bags.
That's what I heard.
So, gotta come, do the Legends thing, try to raise some money. If you get $1,000 in, you get that preferred launch, you get the preferred parking, gonna get some meals, gonna get some other things out of that deal. The better swag bag. But $10,000 first place, $5,000 second place, $2,500 for third, and $1,000 for a team event, and it's guaranteed money. So for $250 entry fee, $260, that's not too shabby.
Sure isn't.
So, are you fishing?
No. I'm going duck hunting.
You're going duck hunting?
It's I have fished that once or twice.
I had somebody ask me today.
Pretty much got embarrassed, but.
Oh, now.
Well, Danielle fished it with me the day that it was like 99 degrees, and that poor.
Hopefully we're not going to have that
I don't know how
again.
she survived it, but and that's extremely rare for that time of year. It's normally going to be a little bit warm, but not as hot as it was then with no wind. But it conflicts with opening day of wood duck season, and that is a time that the guys that I hunt with, we get together. It's kind of like a yearly thing where we do a dove hunt, a wood duck hunt, and we get some work done and started on what's going to be required of us for that duck season.
There you
go. Committed to that.
All right. What else going on right now? We've got that's going to be my last bass boat free fishing day for the Hobie event. So we'll be there for that. So we got the Hobie, the final Hobie of the year.
Come on, baby, you ain't gonna pedal around in your outback 2 days, get some practice in?
I don't want to paddle around. I won't be there Wednesday, Thursday, Friday paddling around for practice. for the Hobie event, but but that'd be the last day I can go and do it in a bass boat and play around and get to see a lot of water a lot faster.
Yep.
So at least give me some ideas, hopefully, of what I need to be doing. So as we get ready, we're gonna have our buddy from Little Miami Rods here. Brandon's gonna be here that week. So, but I'm looking forward to that event. So that'll be fun. Anything else?
Yes, I got WTBY tournament on Bay Springs Saturday. We'll decide the AOI, which our buddy here is in the running for, and he doesn't know what the points are because I ain't let him know.
That text you sent me, was that some misinformation?
That may have been some misinformation.
Oh, man.
That's just for you to find out now. And then also decide the state team, which is very important to us. We want to bring that paddle back right here to us.
There you go.
And one other thing, real quick. Everybody heard about the flooding up in Waverly.
Yep.
But last week, well, our classic that is going to occur on October 23rd and 24th, we're turning it into a charity event for the flood victims of Waverly County, Waverly and Humphreys County. I've already got buy-in from the Clarksville group and the CTKA, that's the Central Tennessee group. They're going to come in with us, bring some folks, get some prizes. 100% is going to go to the flood victims, 100% of the fees, and we're going to use Tourney X on this one. It's going to be a 2-day event on the Beach River watersheds. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
That's going to be a good one.
So that'll be good.
That's cool. Cool that y'all are doing that.
Yeah. So that'll be a fun one though. Should be quite a few boats.
And
Should be quite a
Browns
few
Creek
boats.
is.
Browns Creek
Not in
will
play.
be in play.
Oh, you just made Ashley's freaking night.
Well, he was going to fish anyway.
Yeah, he was, but you know,
Beach is no slouch.
beach is no slouch.
Beach
That's
is
a
no
good one.
slouch.
There's
Hey,
tins
there's
swimming
some
around
tins
beach.
swimming around in Pine too. So
There's some in
another one.
Dogwood, as we all know, as you know. I
So-
call it nice one.
Yeah, so you never know. So, but Beach River Watershed for you guys,
Yes.
that is a good one. So hopefully I can be around for that. We'll see. What else? Anything else, guys? Anything
That's
else
all
we
I
think
got.
of? All right. Longer show than normal, y'all. I mean, we went 20 over, and we're really surprised Facebook let us get away with this one, but it is what it is. We'll be posting about the Big 5 Title Championship giveaway a little bit tomorrow morning as well. I'll post some of that. But guys, come in. We appreciate Jimmy coming out for the show tonight, and I don't know how many times I can say it. I'm so freaking excited for him. It's not even funny.
Thank you. Thank you.
As I posted immediately following, as I've said it many times before, best natural talent I've ever sat in the boat with. So by far, and I've sat in the boat with some really freaking good ones.
I appreciate that, Dave.
So absolutely no doubt. So looking forward to seeing what Jimmy does as we go forward. 2 wins under his belt and still an opportunity for a 3rd one this year. How cool would that be?
Pressure's
to,
on.
to have a Toyota championship and a title championship in the same year.
If I win the Toyota series, it's all going back to taxes.
It probably is. You're already going to have a chunk going back to taxes as we speak. So we got
part of the game.
Part of the game. But we're so freaking proud of you. So happy for you.
Thank you. Yes.
And look forward to that. And anyway, we will be going forward. But guys, we appreciate y'all tuning in tonight. I will download this and post it to YouTube in the morning, y'all, just so that y'all can see it. Because this is when we need to get as much exposure out of as we can.
Yeah.
So if you haven't went and liked Jimmy Washam's fishing page or his YouTube channels, go do that. So we'll post those links tomorrow as well. So
Yeah, the YouTube video part 1, which is going to be practice and days 1 and 2, it'll be here very soon. Depends on how much of it I can get done tomorrow. So.
all right, very cool. Guys, thank y'all. Don't forget to get your entries in for the Bonner Bass Classic. Quit procrastinating, and entry fees go up on the 1st. So get it in before you have to pay all that extra. So anyway, guys, enjoyed it. Thank y'all.
See y'all.